Man, I'm tired of this shit.
Dude, I was listening to that. Leave it alone.
This is absolute trash.
I don't care. Driver picks the station. Shotgun shuts his cake hole.
Passenger gets first dibs on everything. I have my finger on the button.
You know what? You want to fight about it?
Yeah.
Okay,
fuck
fine.
you.
Hey,
Fuck you.
leave it alone.
No.
It's mine.
Turn your trash off. Now look what you did. Round 2.
Round 2.
Electric Boogaloo. Second
Yes.
episode of the year.
And the
second take.
second episode of the year.
Secondary second episode of the year. So hi, welcome to 2025, everybody. Isn't it goddamn grand?
Mm-hmm. We've
I
only
am
had 2
Josh.
people try to blow up the country. And I'm Fraser.
New Orleans didn't try and blow it up. He just ran through the barricade.
Yeah, whatever. Just took a truck and tried to mow down a few people, which he succeeded in.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
Somebody played way too much Grand Theft Auto when they were a kid.
he also was recording talking about, right before he did that, about Al-Qaeda. So
Yeah. And then someone tried to blow up a Tesla truck and didn't succeed because apparently Tesla trucks are built like fucking tanks.
they look like the fucking Gen 1 Warthog from Halo.
Right? Just a little bit less cool.
Did you know that if you buy one right now, because their sales are tanking so badly, pun intended, that they're offering you like free lifetime supercharges, but in the fine print they put that they can revoke that deal at any time without telling you when it is, and that ability to supercharge your Cybertruck only is limited to just you. So if you sell that truck, somebody else does not get that warranty at all.
It's only for the first owner warranty.
And same for you. If you get rid of it or trade it in for another one, then it nulls the entire contract.
Right. Yeah.
Apparently the new contracts coming out for those, like the 2 different Cybertrucks that are out right now, are like very wonky and very much like, here, we're going to do all this extra stuff for you, but we also, like everything else, we accept the right to be able to change it whenever we feel like it, and we don't need to tell you.
Yeah, we reserve the right to pull the rug out from under you at any given time.
Yeah. So anyways, now that we're going into 2025, and I've got a foreboding storm and lightning and thunder right now outside my window
Woo!
to talk about our albums of the year and the albums that we are excited for going into 2025 and hoping to good grace above and below and everywhere else that this year does not suck ass.
Mm-hmm. On the musical front. We're tired of it sucking on the musical front.
I mean, I'm tired of it sucking in general, but yes, the music is the majority of the reason why we're here.
Right.
All right. So we're going to do our top 5 albums of the year. Fraser has a little switchery doodah that he's going to do with his.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll also be posting our top 10s, including these 5, on our social medias, probably within the episode coming out.
Right.
All right. So, do you want to do what we were doing before?
Yeah.
Run down the list, or do you want to alternate?
No, let's just do what we were doing. It was fun.
All right. So, my number 5 being the least best and 1 being the best. I have Oh Hiroshima's album, All Things Shining. And I've talked about this album on the podcast before. I've talked about it on my own social media, given my own more in-depth review than we did on the show. This album is post-rock gold. And post-rock, we talked about what post-rock is and means. It's essentially rock deconstructed with no grandiose riffs, nothing high energy, a lot of instrumental. This album was definitely more exciting than their last albums in a lot of ways. Has more singing involved with it. And I can't say anything negative about this album. Honestly, if my top 1 wasn't the top 1 that came out last year, this one would have been my top 1.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's flawless front to back. It has everything that I want out of a post-rock album. And coming from a metal perspective, there are the heavier songs on there in terms of Oh Hiroshima's back catalog. Not being very heavy, but just being more exciting, I guess, in a way.
Right.
But this album, it's goddamn flawless. It was my background on my computer. Like, go listen to the album if you haven't listened to it.
Yep. Do
Number
it.
4, do it. Number 4 is Fit for an Autopsy's The Nothing That Is. And I've seen Fit for an Autopsy. I've been following them ever since Joe took over on vocals. And these guys, in my opinion, can't put out a bad album. They only progress into how technical their sound is with every album that comes out. Will Putney's still also a deathcore production god, in my opinion. I can't say anything bad about Will Putney and his production style on this album.
Nope, not at all.
And I believe even you liked it too, didn't you?
I did very much.
Number 3 is Make Them Suffer's self-titled album, otherwise known as the album that almost wasn't, because Make Them Suffer is an Australian metalcore band, and with COVID shutting everything down, them losing their keyboardist and clean singer Buka to go be on Australia's version of Married at First Sight, and then I believe something happening, like canceling the show or something like that, so they never end up even producing it. Basically said, deuces, I'm going to go get married, and then the show never happened. So she's like, deuces, I'm back, and they said, no, you're not.
Nah.
So, with Australia shutting down during COVID before this album had started recording, this band did not know if they were going to come back at all. They didn't know if it was going to be the end of the band, or kind of what most bands are kind of doing nowadays, where they take years of hiatus and they kind of bring it back when the interest kind of drums up a little bit more. But this album definitely is. I mean, I feel weird about a band putting out a self-titled album so late into their career.
Right.
And then usually the census is a band puts out a self-titled album and says it's self-titled because it's everything that this band wants their sound to be. They definitely did that with this album. Like it still has the like deathcore-ish elements that they had from the very first album they put out up until their more experimental stuff with the last couple albums. It stands on its own, and it definitely has earned the right to be called Make Them Suffer for their self-titled album.
Right.
Number 2 was an album that Fraser wasn't on the show for, so I don't think he ever listened to it.
Sue
but
me.
It's in the mail. Opeth's album, The Last Will and Testament. We had Andrew on the show to talk about this album, and the general census that
I would like to jump in and say he did golf clap. He did an amazing job as a stand-in.
You hear that? Yeah. So, Opeth's album, The Last Will and Testament, is more of a return to form than their proggy rock albums that they've been putting out. Not to say that these proggy rock albums aren't good. They're very much still Opeth. But now we're reintroducing growls back into it. And Ackerfeld is saying that he feels more comfortable reintroducing growls because it fits the story more than what music he's writing for Opeth.
Right.
It fits the story and it fits the overall darker vibe this album's putting out. Is it a return to form 100%? No, it's not as technical. It sounds more radio-friendly-esque Opeth, in my opinion. It's definitely not as weird, but it's definitely up there as one of their better albums.
Right.
But Opeth also doesn't put out a bad album. It's just weaker contenders versus stronger contenders, which we talked about on that Opeth episode. And number 1, I'm not going to ask Fraser to guess it because he didn't guess it the first time that y'all didn't get to hear it. But Black Dahlia Murder's album Servitude is my number 1 of the year. And it takes more the number 1 position in my albums of the year. Not only because the tragedy that they've overcome to put out this album, but the fact that they were able to overcome their tragedy of Trevor committing suicide,
Right.
coming back and saying, this is what Trevor would have wanted. He wanted this album, this band to continue. He would have wanted somebody else to take over, which Brian, their backup vocalist and guitar player, has stepped into the lead singer position, and he's done it flawlessly, in my opinion. His vocals sound more raw on this album, kind of has more of like a punk element to his vocals, but Brian also was co-writer on most of the songs Black Dahlia has done. He's also worked in production. He's been with them since day 1 with Trevor. Anybody that could take that position and run with it, it's Brian, and he's done it flawlessly on Servitude. This album does not skip a beat in the discography at all. And the nice thing about Servitude is these songs aren't about, we lost our friend, we lost our brother, everything is painful and sad right now. It's very much like, this is a Black Dahlia Murder album. This is what it is. And the subject matter on this album runs flawlessly into their back catalog.
Right.
And I can't say nothing bad about this album, besides the fact that it's a little too short in my opinion.
Right. Which is a problem we've been talking about for a while now.
Yeah, and I'm still seeing it. Like Memphis Mayfire put out the track list for their new album, and it's the same exact thing. It's 10 or 11 songs, half an hour. I'm seeing it more and more lately, and it really bothers. Whoo! Big thunder shook my house.
I heard that on my end. For anybody that didn't hear that, I heard that on my end. Well, and Memphis
all
Mayfire,
the way in Washington.
Memphis Mayfire is doing the same thing that drives me nuts. They have so far released 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
There's only
songs.
3 songs that are coming out that you haven't heard yet.
They've released 6 of the songs so far for the new album, and they've also released instrumental versions of all of them and vocal versions of all those songs so far.
Acapella, right?
Yeah, acapella, and so that
nobody's
means
asking for this.
No, you've got 3 songs to drop when you actually drop the album. Like, I understand the business sense. I understand you drop a single and an acapella and an instrumental version, and that generates more revenue. I completely understand the reasons behind it. Doesn't make it okay. Fucking stop doing, because they did this.
Diablo Viscaris came out with their last album, Exul, a couple years ago. I want to say we might have talked about it. It would have been one of the first ones we reviewed on season 1.
It is.
And then all of a sudden on Tidal, a deluxe edition popped up, and it was like, oh, sweet, deluxe edition. I wonder what they added to it. It's the entire album instrumental.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that's not a deluxe edition. I want more than just...
And Memphis Mayfire did this with the last album, Misery. Like, I'm tired of it. Stop doing this. Stop releasing half an album or more and then giving us 3 songs and saying, hey, we dropped an album. No, you didn't. You dropped 12 singles over the course of a year.
I want to say even Linkin Park on their big comeback only released 3 songs?
2 or 3, yeah. So they did the Misery Machine.
They did that. They did
Emptiness
Heavy
Machine.
as the Crown.
Heavy as the Crown and Emptiness Machine. That's 3 of them. 3.
Yeah. And that album is what it is, but at least they didn't put out half the album before it actually came out.
Well, and like Wage War put out 2 or 3 songs. They put out Nails, Magnetic, and then after the album dropped, they put out Blur.
Yeah, they put out a single for Blur right after the album came out.
Oh, I'm sorry. They did 4 songs. They did 3 songs. They did Magnetic, Nails, and Tombstone. And then they put out Blur as a single after the album was already out, which was the point. Which is a good idea. Like,
right.
Stop releasing 3/4 of an album and then dropping 3 or 4 songs and saying you've released the album. No, you haven't. You've released 8 singles.
So hey, you want to talk about your top 5 albums? Because I know one of your bands actually did the exact opposite of this.
Yes. So my number 1 album, as Josh and I were talking about, is Lakeview.
Is it number 1 or number 5?
Number 1. Well, top. It's the top spot. Should I go 5 to? Okay. Should I go worst to best?
Do whatever you want, baby.
Okay, so worst to best. And here's the problem. So Josh and I are going to have to deliberate, and this will take up a little bit of extra time. So here's my hang up, Josh. Nothing More, Normandy, and Bill Murray. And Rain City Drive. All dropped.
Rain City Drive is going to take it for me.
Okay, so Rain City Drive. I'm going to put Nothing More at spot number 5 then. I love Nothing More. I think they are probably one of the most artistic bands out there right now. I think that with every album, they're still trying to push the envelope creatively, even if I don't.
So who wins in a creative fist fight? Nothing More or Like a Storm?
Nothing More. Like a Storm. If you do listen to them, for the record, everybody, I love Like a Storm with all my heart. They are easily in my top 10 bands of all time. But with that being said, if you listen to all their discography front to back, a lot of the songs have the same style of riff or the same key of riff. They have songs that are way out on the spectrum, but the majority of songs kind of do fit into the same kind of thing. Nothing More, even on this album, is using 8 strings and drop E. Like,
I don't think I've actually listened to Nothing More's new album now that I think about it.
I'm not sure which song it is. Yeah, If It Doesn't Hurt is an 8-string in drop E. There's one other song in drop E. They have a song that they released with David Draymond from Disturbed.
That's right.
I wasn't big on the song itself, but I respected it because it was still progressive and very different. And that's why I didn't like it, but I still highly respected it because they were trying to push the envelope of their sound a little bit.
Right.
Totally get it. So there's that. I love Nothing More. So then in the fourth spot would be Rain City Drive's album, which was... fudge, I can't remember the name of it.
It was a damn good album is what it was.
Everything's Different Now or something like that. But the album was really well done. I think they had, as much as I don't like that this is true, I think since the passing of the lead singer's either father or grandfather, which is what most of the lyrics were about, they were pushed creatively in a good way. Unfortunately, trauma does push us musicians and artists to be better sometimes. But it had a better feel than the last album did. The last album for me was really mid, like a 5 out of 10, but this album really pushed the envelope for what they normally do. His vocals were frickin' on fire. In my top 10, just so people know, just the background stuff, because I'll be quick about this. I had As I Lay Dying. As much as you might hate me for that, that's okay. Normandy, who released their album in like January of 2024, and then Bill Murray's All American Motorsports.
So I saw this the other day on social media. It was really actually funny. Now that you bring up Bill Murray, it was a picture of him back when he was in Attack.
Yeah, Johnny Frank
doing his crabcore dance, saying like, if you told me this guy would come out with like the pop country easycore album of the year, then I'd say you were on drugs.
Right. You want to hear something that'll really drive you nuts?
Always.
Beartooth The Surface came out a year and a half ago now.
I was just jamming Riptide the other day, actually.
It literally came out like a year and a half ago now, and I went to go look at it because I thought that it came out in 2024 and went, no way it came out in 2023, but it did.
Well, that one came out in 2023. Did the deluxe edition come out in 2024?
Yeah, I know it did. For a fact, I know it did.
That might be what you're thinking of then.
Yeah, because I would have put Beartooth in there, but then I was like, no, The Surface came out in 2023.
Yep.
Anyway, so the third spot easily goes to the home team. Like at this point, we're like
sexiest album of the year.
Absolutely. Basically at this point, the top 3 is just me splitting hairs. That's all it is. So all of these could be shuffled into spot number 1, depending on what day it is. But just based on, at this point, I'm being objective and scientific about it. And this is strictly based on how much time I looked it up. Pardon me. How much time I spent listening to each individual album. Because by mood, I could pick each one of these 3 for number 1. So don't judge me. But the first one I'm picking is Home Team. Wow, there's little lights going on in your house. Is there still lightning?
Well, I mean, there's not lights inside my house, but there's literally lightning outside.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, me and Josh do this via a video call every week, and I'm watching the inside of his house change colors, and like different parts of the window light up brighter than they should be because the lightning flashes.
Oh, like legit. You can see out that window right there. I can see the lightning hitting just on the other side of the trees. And that's only like a couple, 100 feet away.
Yeah.
I'm watching it smash down and it's like, well, that's going to probably hit my house. So I don't want to go to work tomorrow.
Right. So the Home Team definitely took sexiest album of the year. This is also like, as funny as it is, one thing I love about the Home Team.
Don't listen to this album with your grandma.
No. Well, you can just pick and choose the songs.
Don't tell grandma what it says.
Yeah, don't show grandma the lyrics. One thing I give credit to the Home Team, I'll make a weird comparison. My favorite thing about the TV show Seinfeld is taking the most minimalistic things that we think about and choose to do every single day or don't choose to do and blowing them up into a full episode. I feel like that's what the Home Team does with songs. For instance, the song Roommate is literally just about being tired and sick and tired of your roommate and wanting them to move out.
Well, the whole premise behind Seinfeld was supposed to be it was a show about nothing.
Exactly.
But there's no conflict. There's no like higher meaning to the show. Like nothing. It's just these people just going through their daily lives. And that was definitely. I feel your comparison is really good because I was listening to Home Team's last album before this new one, and it was kind of the same thing. It was like, I don't feel like this is like some grandiose concept. It's just like, hey, you know what bothered me today?
It's exactly
Scary
what it
movies.
is. It's literally day-to-day life in a song, but in a good way. Like my favorite, the best way to narrow down this analogy is one of my favorite episodes of Seinfeld is where they literally have a giant argument about whether or not they should park in the handicap spot because all they have to do is run into the store and run out in like 5 minutes, and they're sure that no one will need that spot. And then chaos ensues for the rest of the half-hour episode because they choose to park in that spot. That's literally that's the whole premise of the episode. That's how I feel like the Home Team does with these songs in the best of ways. They take like the most mundane thing, like I said with Roommate, of, hey, I just want my roommate to move out because I'm sick of them leaving dishes in the sink. And they make an amazing musical, created song about this little minuscule idea. And
It's
it
a
makes
diss
you
track for a very minimal part of your day.
And it makes you feel like, hey, not only do they just like sing about fun stuff that everyone sings about, but they also sing about like everyday stuff that I can get down to and realize, and relate with.
Right.
So that was number 3, Home Team's The Crucible of Life. Me and Josh texted for a couple days about it because it was so good. Number 2 is going to be Wage War's Stigma. Josh and I both actually had very mixed emotions going into and coming out of listening to this album.
I remember you texting me this album and said that this is going to be your album for the review episode that we did on it. And I remember plain as day, I'm sitting at work, I'm going through apartment units in this building I'm working on. I was blasting it on my phone on my cart, and I was like, what the hell is this? This doesn't even sound like Wage War anymore. But then sitting on it's like, oh, I see what you meant by that episode, talking about how they're playing and having fun within the genre that they're playing.
Yeah. Josh and I talked earlier I'll totally admit my faults here. We started recording this episode already and had to scrap it because we realized not a single bit of the audio I was using was actually being recorded. So we had to start all over again. During that time, Josh and I were talking about how, and I made the comparison of like, when I listen to like All Time Low or Blink-182 or any of the pop punk genre, I'm like in a super happy, like let's go skateboarding and wakeboarding mood and like getting out of school kind of mentality. If you could somehow put that mentality in a heavy Wage War album in terms of how fun it is, that's the best way to describe this album. It's still Wage War, it's still heavy, there's still deathcore growls, there's still all that fun stuff. It's a little bit more melodic than their previous stuff. But you can tell they're just having so much fun, and they're at like a good point in all of their lives where they're just excited to be doing what they're doing. So not only can I get heavy on this album, but I can also be like happy, smiley, go lucky, heavy.
Right.
And that brings us to number 1, which is a good encompassing of all that, and also ties to Wage War pretty well because Cody Quistad. Numero uno. Because Cody Quistad helped write a good portion of this album. A band called Lakeview, kind of a country rock metal mashup. To the opposite of Memphis May Fire. Maddie, if you're listening to this, I'm still talking to you.
He's always talking to him.
They put out like 9 or 10 songs before the album came out because they were legitimately putting out singles as an independent band and trying to make money to make the album. Then when the album came out, there was 18 tracks on the son of a bitch. Which made me happy. They're like, here's all the singles we've released in one spot, and also another album's worth of material so that you don't get bored of listening to the same songs that we've had you listen to for the past year.
My only complaint with the album is that when I listened to it, like majority of the songs did sound kind of samey in a way.
Mm-hmm. But
sitting down on it, like you start actually listening to it, you can hear the differences. Like just a tertiary listen to was like, oh, I understand what's being played here, but sitting down and actually picking the differences out, like you can tell, especially with going through the singles and what becomes the actual album.
Yeah.
Like they do blend very well.
Yeah, and there's parts of the album, I'll admit, there's sections of the album I kind of skip 1 or 2 songs for the most part unless I really want to listen to it because they kind of dip a little bit and they get into a stereotypical pop country type vibe, and so I kind of flip through those a little bit. And there's maybe 3 or 4 songs out of 18, mind you, that I'll skip over.
Yeah.
So there's plenty to still enjoy. But with that being said, skipping only 3 or 4 songs when I want to, when I'm like, hey, this isn't the mood I'm in, out of basically I skipped those 3 or 4 songs because I don't want to listen to breakup songs. I want to listen to the heavier, fun stuff that they have on the album. So if I only
Hear
want
that
to,
with a song about how his dad is sad because he's a musician.
right? So like, that's actually probably, I agree, that's the weakest track on the album. But
That's the one that became very stereotypical for me, especially being in a
agreed.
country area like I am, where it's just like, oh man, I feel really bad for you. But there's also a Tesla dealership down the street from me, so soon the country songs are going to be about the truck leaving you.
yeah, and I agree. That was like, hey, we're gonna try to make sure that everyone knows that we're a country act and we still have country roots. So we're gonna throw an arbitrary country song in there.
Right.
And not that I think they honestly do, because there's a couple other points during the album where they talk about like he talks about his father and his strained relationship. So I feel like that song was a very legitimate song and came from a legitimate place. Stop it. Stop doing that. Sorry guys, it's my phone. And I've tried turning down the volume, it won't do it. So I'm just gonna close that thing. It's an alarm. So I think that they tried to throw that. I think it actually comes from a real place, and it was a legitimate song that they actually legitimately wrote. But I think they sat down and were like, well, let's make a real country song about a real thing that we really feel. But it just comes out of place on the album. But anyway,
Right.
Again, if I only have to skip 3 or 4 songs on an entire album of 18, that still leaves 15 or 14 songs that I really, really enjoy. And the 2 songs towards the end that are kind of breakup songs, one's called Why and another one's called Say It First. Those songs still hold that rock and roll feel to them and have a little bit of edge. So I find those songs incredibly enjoyable. So yeah,
Right.
there's my number 1 for the year of 2024. We, like Josh said, we were going to put out a top 10 for each of us because there are some albums in there that I could have exchanged out for number 5 pretty easily.
I know I definitely switched up a couple of mine as I sat down and thought about it.
Yeah. And I like nothing more, the more I think about it, the more I really enjoy that album. I just, for some reason, don't spend a lot of time listening to it. Like when
I don't think I listened to it at all, actually.
when I flip through and look at it, I go, oh shit, I want to listen to that. But then for some reason, I just don't ever think of listening to it. Like it has to come across my face for me to think about it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But it still deserves a top 5 spot. Every time I hear and when they put out their first single, which is off that album, which is If It Doesn't Hurt, that's when I really started to go, these guys are freaking artists through and through. So, yeah, there's my take on the top 5.
Hell yeah! All right. So, we have albums coming out this year. We have albums coming out all the time. Just the end of the year, you don't see anything coming out, really. So, here's some stuff that we are excited for 2025 in terms of music. There's albums that we know that are coming out. There are albums that are being talked about coming out that have no definitive release date or much info about. 2 bands have come back coming out with new music under some strange circumstances that we also need to talk about. So ours are going to probably run together. I feel like some of the albums that we're excited for are going to bleed in to the others albums that we talk about.
Yes, we are going to be flip-flopping and sharing for sure.
So right now we know for a fact that All That Remains is coming out with a new album, Anti-Fragile. We have 2 different release dates. I think your release date's the right one because I think you looked it up on Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify says that it's releasing on the 31st, which I have thought is the release date the whole time, but you came up with the 24th.
Rockfeed said that it was coming out on January 24th. So I don't know if it's been moved up or if it's any info is being cut upon between Spotify and Rockfeed. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah. But either way, that's only a week apart. So either way, it comes out on either the week before or the week after.
And this is their first album with Jason Richardson fully on guitar, right?
Yep. Because they took a long enough time. I watched an interview with Phil Labonte because after the last album,
This big ass beard now.
Well, you obviously have the problem where Ollie died, and there's been a bunch of litigation between him and his now widowed wife, and also a whole bunch of accusations and things about how terrible of a person she is, and even the
There's
allegations.
also the pharmaceutical edge to it.
Yeah, and that she may have killed him. This might look like a Kurt Cobain thing. So Phil Labonte, in short, basically said that they had been wrapped up in litigation for a while, and also, to be fair, they all had enough money and time that they all could just kind of sit back and they didn't have to rush putting out an album. So they were just like, obviously the pandemic happened over the last 5 years. So they're like, okay, let's just do another album now. Now we got Jason on guitar and all that stuff. So let's start getting after it.
And Jason was just a touring musician with them for a while until they actually offered him a full-time gig as the lead guitar player.
Correct. And it's funny, I watched, again, in that same interview, Phil Labonte was talking about playing with Jason Richardson, and he's like, you hear him do this take, and he kind of halfway flubs one note that any other guitarist in any other studio session would be fine with, and he's like, and Phil just leans over and goes, he's going to want to redo that. And so the producer goes, so how'd you feel about that? And he goes, yeah, can I just do another take? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he does like a flawless, perfect thing. He's like, yeah, he'll be fine with that. And then Jason's like, yeah, that's better. Like, he just barely like misses or half times or accidentally cuts off a note earlier than he wants. He's like, yeah, I got to redo that.
I mean, he's a perfectionist. He comes from his own solo project.
Right. So yeah, I'm excited for that. The funny thing is, I'm actually a little concerned because like the song No Tomorrow is one of my favorite riffs and intros of all time so far, but then the song just softens out so much.
All That Remains has been doing that for the last couple of albums. They've definitely I think they've kind of lost a little bit of the script, I feel like, because I feel like All That Remains now is definitely a different animal than it was even 2 albums ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they've, especially with Jason Richardson on guitar, like, yeah, it's tight, it's technical, it's very groovy, but I feel like it's going to become more like what you'd expect from Jason Richardson's solo albums with Phil on vocals.
Well, and I feel like Phil just doesn't want to scream much anymore. I feel like that's probably what it's coming down to. And to be fair, he's getting older. But my concern, I don't want to say my concern. My feeling is they're losing a little bit of their edge because Phil can't keep up on the screaming end, which is fair. But I would love to hear them do more of the heavy stuff again. I would love these 4 songs they've put out are good. Don't get me wrong. But again, I feel like that the little bit of that edge that they used to have is gone. So I'm hoping the rest of the album's heavier.
You're never going to have like This Darkened Heart ever again.
No.
You're never even going to have like, This Calling ever again.
Right.
But I don't know. Like they had the one album, I think it was called Madness, like 2 or 3 album cycles ago. That had their cover of the Thunder Rolls.
Yeah.
And that one I think was probably their softest one.
Yeah.
Then
he went through his divorce and they put out the album with Fuck Love on it. And everyone was like, what? This is what we were waiting for.
Victim of the New Disease was actually a very solid album. Like even its slowest songs were still like hard rock songs instead of like poppy I'm sad songs.
I would love to hear more of that then. But like I said, I'm enjoying the technicality and the style. I would just love it to be a little bit more brutal if the rest of the album comes out.
Speaking of brutal, Killswitch Engage's new album, This Consequence, comes out February 21st, as far as we know. And just based off the single that came out, like, good God damn, Killswitch Engage is back.
Mm-hmm. Jesse said that he was actually having a hard time keeping up because it was getting so crazy.
Well, so Jesse Leach had said that they had started demoing the songs out about a year or 2 ago. And a year or 2 goes by and people start asking like, when's the single coming out? When's an album coming out? And I really like what he's doing with this. And he is straight up telling everybody and being very transparent. Some of the songs I wrote are not up to my own standards. This album is not going to be released until we feel 100% that this is the album that we want to put out.
Right.
I mean, Killswitch can sit 8 years without making an album, and they can tour constantly with all their back catalog, and they'll be just fine.
Yep. Yeah, they can make money. They can legacy act it like Godsmack is and have no issues.
No, and the fact that we're still getting new music from some of these bands that we had as kids is still, fucking great, especially like with Shadows Fall coming back.
Yeah.
And...
Well, look at all the bands coming. Like, oh, man, there's a band I forgot to talk about that's coming back for sure that I want to hear new music from. Keep going.
Snot.
Well, Snot for sure. Snot is on my list too. But I mean, look at Sevendust's career. Those guys just come out with new music like it's
religiously.
Right, and it's never bad. Like there are some albums that like dip up and down for sure, but it's never bad, and it's a Seven Dust album every time.
Right. It's like
So
Killswitch's last album. It's like their last album was good, but they definitely kind of like roll along with their sound that they've kind of been rocking since Jesse came back. Just based off the single that came out within this last year, like they're definitely up in their game on it. Like that chorus is fucking
right,
flawless. It's sweet and sweeping, and it hits every note that I want it to. And I've been a Killswitch fanboy for a long time. Even Fraser can tell you, I'm more of a fanboy to Jesse than I am to Howard.
same here.
Just because I got into Killswitch back when Jesse was on vocals. And I mean, Jesse is the guy that I think of with Killswitch. Howard is still a flawless vocalist, and I still stand by anything that Howard still puts out, which we'll all still talk about him and Adam doing their new album.
Right.
But Killswitch Engage's album is going to be like the top of my like. I'm going to be watching and counting down when that one comes out.
Absolutely.
Also, we have Spirit Box, which this is weird to say. Spirit Box is coming out with their second album this year.
They've been riding hard on one album.
It's one album and a handful of singles. Like, they have an EP.
Right.
They have an EP when they first came out. They have Eternal Blue. They have the Rotoscope, I believe, EP that has 3 songs. They came out the second EP that's got 3 songs and a couple singles here and there. And now they put out 2 singles coming out for this new album, Tsunami Sea. And I don't know how Spirit Box does it.
Right.
Especially now that they got Josh from As I Lay Dying as their bass player and also backup singer and production too.
Yeah, I say you got to remember that Josh Gilbert isn't just a bassist that was in As I Lay Dying that was a singer and a hired gun. Dude's a songwriter, a producer, a bassist, a vocalist. The man does everything. He's like Jordan Fish, except for just no one talks about his production and songwriting.
Well, it's like Adam Duckowitz too from Killswitch. Like that
Right.
guy, like not only does all that, but also Adam does all the album art too. He has his
Right.
own album art career on top of it.
Right.
But having Mike on guitar for Spirit Box and Josh on bass, like just between those two with their production and play style, like this new album is going to be fucking flawless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I bet you, although not to take anything away from Courtney, I would love to hear of some of Josh either backing her up or taking over just 1 or 2 little lead lines just to see how it goes together. Like just
their single Perfect Soul, I think is what it's called. That chorus, he's doing backup on chorus and harmonizing with her, and man, it sounds so clean.
Yeah, I would love to see them trade off vocal duties even for one song. Like again, not to put Courtney in the background, but just to let Josh do his thing.
Yeah, like you can't not have Josh singing on something, especially with such a storied career with As I Lay Dying as their singer.
Right.
Remind me when we're done here. I'll send you the song and you can judge for yourself. Like my kids love that song.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm in.
All right, what's some of yours? Because I got 2 big ones that are coming out with music that we didn't expect. So what else? We got Architects.
So Architects, and based off the 3 singles they've released already, I am so stoked for this album. Like I can't get over every
Sam
song.
is back to doing fucking lows, and it's about time.
Oh my gosh.
His
And
lows are the best in the game.
Everything about the 3 singles they have put out matches everything I want in an Architects album. I would love to have one song that's a little heavier than the 3 they've put out, but Whiplash does a very good job of taking that heavy spot, and so does Seeing Red. But I would love for just one brutally heavy song, like in the line of Nihilist off of All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us.
I'm sure you're gonna get it. They don't put out like the heavy stuff until the album comes out because they know how to drum up their audience based off of what they've been playing and putting out.
Right. So I'm super, super stoked for Architects. We talked about this together, 3 Days Grace, especially after the way Mayday came out and how good that sounded blended. I'm super excited for 3 Days Grace to come out with something.
I'm nervous about it, but I am excited to see how this is going to sound.
Yeah, I'm apprehensive in terms of like I don't know what we're about to get, but I hope it's good. But after the way Mayday was put out, I think everything's going to be okay. I am excited for the Memphis Mayfire album, even though there's only like 3 or 4 songs left to put out on that album before we're before, there's nothing else to listen to. Memphis May Fire has been doing a really good job lately of putting songs together. Keep in mind the past the past album, and it looks like most of this album was co-written with Cody Quistad from Wage War, which is helping them get their edge back, which I appreciate. So keep that in mind. Like they are getting outside help with the songwriting in a good way and in the right way, I think. You can't expect one person, Kellen McGregor, to write all the music and have a different feel. And I think they're kind of in the new era of getting back to their heaviness, which I've been enjoying.
It's like you have Kellen. You also have Will Putney doing a lot of writing for a lot of bands. You also have, Cody doing a lot of it, and Jordan Fish writing a lot of music. Like those 4 or 5 guys are like everywhere in these genres right now.
Well, I mean, even we talked about Lakeview earlier in the episode. One of the songs on Lakeview's album was written by Kellen McGregor. Like, the dude isn't just sticking with Memphis May Fire. It's kind of fun to see it. People might get mad because they're like, oh, you don't write your own music. But you got to realize all 4 or 5 of these guys are rotating between each band and helping all the other bands out. So it's not like it's almost become this weird like songwriting circle. And then they divvy up which song goes to which band. Like, and I'm not saying that's actually what's happening, but you see, like, Kellen's jumping on the Wage War albums, Cody's jumping on the Memphis May Fire albums, Jordan's jumping on Architects and helping out Bring Me the Horizon, and they're all kind of swapping between each other's bands and showing each other what musicians should do, which is showing each other all their different techniques and styles, and allowing everybody to blend everything together to make it their own sound, which I've been loving. You're going to get mad at me for the next one. I am kind of hoping that Creed drops some new music, especially after the way that Full Circle came out with that heaviness. I'm excited for that. If they do, they haven't announced that they're going to bring something out, but with the way they've exploded back onto the scene,
they've been touring goddamn constantly all of a sudden.
One of my news things that I saved that I'll just save here is in the last year alone, they've made more money than they ever did when they were actually together the first time around.
Right.
So, including the Full Circle reunion tour in 2009 and the 6 years or 7 years they were together on the first 3 albums, they made more money this year than they have previously in any other year, and that was $65 million, and they've sold over 800,000 tickets or something stupid.
It's like an asinine amount all of a sudden, and like they're touring with Three Doors Down and somebody else for like the Summer of '99 tour.
Yeah,
and it's crazy that of all the bands that were not on my 2024 bingo card as being like the biggest rock bands of the year, it was not going to be Creed.
Right. So there's that. I am excited. They haven't announced new music yet, but they have announced they're returning Crossfade. Holy hell, if Crossfade comes back, I am going to blow my top. And I don't care how bad the album is, unless it's like atrocious.
Forgot about them.
Because they've announced that they're touring again in 2025.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're just coming back and on the scene makes me really hopeful, because literally they gave an interview to Rockfeed. The guy from Rockfeed is the only reason that Crossfade is back together. Because after Spotify came out, if you go on Crossfeed's page, they're pulling numbers like Nickelback does. Like, Cold has over 300 million views so far, and
Crossfade only has, I think, like 3 albums.
Yeah, and they do. And the third album came out like 6 years after the first 2 albums.
Yeah.
So they were like, and their bassist was like sitting. He's like, no, I'm seriously sitting at home, and streaming started coming out, and obviously we jumped on, like, our record company put us on streaming. And he goes, next thing we know, we start getting these fat ass checks again. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? Because none of them have social media. None of them have done social media in like the past 10 years. They like stay off the internet and shit. So all of a sudden they start getting these fat ass residual checks and royalty checks. And like, what the hell is going on? And then they finally log back in and realize that everyone's losing their mind about Crossfade again.
Right.
So
which is good, because Crossfade's a good band.
I'm excited. I'm hoping they come back hitting hard. Another one who has officially announced that they have music coming out is Motionless in White. And everybody knows that I am a giant Motionless in White fanboy. I will be till the day I die. You will not be able to stop me from doing it. I hope they drop the scoring the end of the world aesthetic and move on to something else. I loved Disguise and Graveyard Shift and even Reincarnate. I know a lot of people are huge Creatures fans and huge Infamous fans. My favorite era of Motionless in White was Reincarnate through Graveyard Shift, or I'm sorry, Reincarnate through Disguise. I liked Scoring the End of the World. Slaughterhouse is one of my favorite songs they've ever put out. So is Red, White, and Boom. The rest of the album didn't exactly sit with me perfectly. I still gave it a good 8 out of 10, but it wasn't my favorite they've put out. Again, in a list of albums that's amazing, that was one of my least favorite. Right. So keep that in mind. I still go back to that album all the time and listen to it, but it's, again, when you have, as a joke, as a comparison, when you have like 8 or 9, 10 out of 10 albums, this one's like an 8 or 9 out of 10. So,
right.
So that was my Scoring the End of the World. I hope they kind of lose the electronic cyberpunk aesthetic. I get why they did it, because Cyberpunk 2077 was out at the time, and they're big gamers, so I understand.
And they also had a lot of influence from Mick Gordon on that album too.
Absolutely, they love Mick Gordon, and they were really in their gamer mode at that one. So I'm hoping, especially with bands like Knocked Loose getting popular, I'm kind of hoping that they jump back into the grittier gothic more style instead of the cyberpunk style. Right. Also, we forgot to mention this band. Whitechapel's coming back with an album, so they've said.
Yeah, so we talked about their song "Visceral Wretch," and we've talked about Phil Bozeman's mental struggles coming off of medication, going into this year now with new tours. They just did a bunch of their yearly benefit shows out there in their hometown where we live, just about 6 hours away. So they did their Chattanooga and Knoxville. I don't think they did a Memphis show, or else I would have tried to have gone. But now they're talking about this album's going to be bringing it back to the heaviness of their first couple of albums. Definitely moving away from the clean vocals, their cleaner sounding guitar work that they've been doing on these last couple albums, especially on Kin.
Yeah.
Like, Whitechapel is going to be back with a fucking vengeance, and they're going to come out swinging with this new album, and I'm ready for it. If it's anything like Visceral Wretch came out as,
Yep.
Phil just sounds disgusting on that song, and I love it.
I'm going to really quickly skip over these two, just because, unless you want to talk about them, Josh. Two bands, I don't think they've announced officially new music, but I think we both know that they're either going to or they're planning on it, are Mudvayne and Sleep Token. And for those of you that don't know,
I can't see Sleep Token putting out any new music this year.
Really?
Maybe
Why
a single towards the. Well, I can maybe see him putting out a single towards the end of the year, maybe. But I mean, they're still riding hard off "Take Me Back to Eden." I don't think you're gonna really see much music come out of them, except, like I said, maybe a single. You might maybe see an album come out next year, because I think "Take Me Back to Eden" only came out this year.
No, it came out in 2023.
Not sure. Okay, well, I'm stupid, so.
It came out in May of 2023. Maybe then,
but they kind of go on the 3 to 4 year album cycle.
And I'd be fine with that. I think it might happen. I think it might not, especially the only reason I speculate it might happen is because of the big Mask update that they tried to give a little while ago. I also think I'm in the same vein as you, that they might go underground for a little bit, just because so many people have tried to dox them, and now people are trying to confirm that the lead singer is... Can't think of his name, Lou something. But anyway, people are trying to really figure out who they are, so they might just go underground and be like, "Hey, see ya. We'll see you in the future when we don't want to be doxxed anymore, or want our popularity to die off a little bit."
Well, and going along with the concepts of their albums too, there's only so much that they can really go into their concept with this whole sleep deity that they talk about, and it sounded a lot like this last one for "Take Me Back to Eden" was going to be kind of like the end of that story and the end of the preaching about sleep as a deity.
Right. So kind of curious where they come. For those of you that also don't know, going back to the other one I talked about is Mudvayne. For those of you that don't know, Mudvayne announced their return 2 years ago, and basically have only been doing the System of Down thing, where they only show up for live shows, and they've been touring, but they've been touring fucking hard. So I can
see them pulling the same thing as System of a Down. I can't see really them all sitting down. Well, I don't think Hell Yeah is even together anymore.
No, they broke up officially. And that was the thing, is that after Vinny died, they basically put out the last album, and then then immediately all of a sudden Mudvayne kicked back up. And it was like, hey, Chad, we get it. You need something to do, but don't just keep hopping bands and keeping us on the hook for Mudvayne just because you wanted to play in Hell Yeah until it literally the member you were attached to died. And then all of a sudden...
And it's all 4 members of Mudvayne.
Yes, and they have a 5th touring member now, too. They actually have a 5th guy on stage doing extra guitar work and screams to help out. But, I mean, the Mudvayne thing kind of irritated me just because, like, the second Hell Yeah was over, Mudvayne was back. And it was like, okay, Chad, yeah, we know it was you. You were the one holding up this entire project the whole time.
Right.
And now it's even more obvious. So that kind of pissed me off, but I don't know. Obviously, I can't speak on the reasonings behind that or what's going on or why that would be. But I'm happy they're back and they're touring. I'd love to go see them at some point. I haven't been able to check them out live, but I would love them to announce they're coming out with music. Finally,
the shitty things about these bands coming back out now is that, like Mudvayne, like when Snot comes back and Shadows Fall is coming back, those tickets are going to be so goddamn expensive, and that's what makes me really bummed about the fact that, like, yeah, Mudvayne's coming back. You know, you can spend $20 to go see Mudvayne in like 2005. Right. Here we are in 2025, and it's like, you want to go see Mudvayne, you're going to go to a festival that you're spending $1,500 on.
Well, not only that, but I told you. So for those of you who don't know, I've been looking for it for a little while. I actually found Mudvayne's self-titled album, the white one that you need a UV light to see the artwork and everything. I found it at a record shop, and it's so rare to get your hands on. It was on sale for $20,
Damn.
which isn't, you know, super expensive, but for just a regular ass album, you know, you got a limited edition print when it's $20. You know, when they're selling it for $20. So
right.
Finally, last but not least, obviously they've already put out a single. We haven't been told officially there will be an album yet, but if Breaking Benjamin puts out anything like Ember was or anything like Awaken was, I think we're all going to also lose our minds. And if they don't go on tour with 3 Days Grace and Crossfade, I'm going to throw a fit.
They should throw Chevelle on that list too, because
Chevelle's coming out with music. They finally announced that they're coming out with music.
Because they had said that they were going on hiatus for a little while just to kind of take a break.
To be fair, Pete, the lead singer, has obviously been one of the most vocal people on the planet about how corrupt the music industry is and how terrible the record companies are. Like, he has been overly pissed. And he said when they took hiatus that the reason they're taking hiatus is because they got so burnt out of music and the music industry in general because of how backwards and backstabbing it is.
Yeah, so they had left to kind of, you know, reorient themselves, which... good on them, because, I mean, Chevelle doesn't put out a bad album.
No, and I feel bad that they have been literally drugged through the mud every single time. And I don't mean drugged through the mud publicly, but again, with as much as they literally bitch about the record industry and how terrible it's treated them, which I'm sure it's true, at this point, I'm like, guys, just give them their dues. Like, they fucking paid them. Just let them play and make money, for heaven's sake.
Right.
So...
there's 2 other ones that are coming back or have announced they've come back, from first to last. So most people might know this, some people might not. From first to last started with Sonny Moore on vocals, who is also known as Skrillex. He left from first to last to do his EDM stuff and left Matt Good, their guitar player, on vocals. They came out with the self-titled album with Matt on vocals. It was a pop punk album. It didn't get a lot of attention. In my opinion, it's probably one of their best ones, besides Heroin. They did another album after that with Matt on vocals, and then they switched to Spencer Sotelo from Periphery on vocals for Dead Trees. Spencer left after that, and kind of left him up in the air. From first to last, really didn't do a lot. Matt Good went on to become a producer and has produced a lot of albums since then. Now... fast forward a couple years after that, we got, I believe, 2 singles that came back with Sonny on vocals. And it was just 2. And then they dropped off the face of the earth again. They didn't really tour. They didn't do anything with these 2 songs. And I just found this out last night as I was scrolling through music. I found 2 new songs that are with Matt back on vocals, with Travis Richter, their, I believe their bass player that does all the screaming for their band.
Mm-hmm.
And From First to Last is apparently coming back with come out with 2 new songs, Genesis and Rev, that are flawless songs in my opinion. I'll send them to you.
Right.
And that really came out of left field. I was not expecting anybody to come back. It was From First to Last. So From First to Last is more than likely going to put out an album this year.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you're going to probably get a couple more singles off of what's going to be a new album, probably the following year.
Right.
I hope it comes out this year because I've always loved From First to Last ever since I was in high school. And Fraser probably doesn't know these guys, but he should because he's a Seattle native. He's not looking at me.
No, I'm waiting.
The band Nevermore.
Yeah.
Never is a Seattle native band. I don't really know what you consider them. They are a metal band. Warrell Dane was always praised for his absolutely unique vocal style. And he ended up passing away a couple years ago. And Jeff Loomis, the lead guitar player, kind of went on to do his own stuff. I know Warrell Dane came out with his solo album and died before finishing his second solo album, so it was finished up and released posthumously. So Jeff Loomis has now announced that Nevermore is coming back in 2025.
Right.
And at first, it was a huge backlash because Warrell Dane's voice is what makes Nevermore unique.
Right.
And I feel like we're going to get a Linkin Park situation where we're not going to get a singer that everybody's going to universally agree with. But they've also put out on social media, like a big social media post about how we understand everybody's upset about Nevermore announcing that they're coming back, but this isn't a cash grab. We want to do this because not only do we want to respect everything that came before with Warrell, we also want to, do music again.
Right.
So they're holding auditions for a new singer. I believe their original bass player was not asked to return, and they kind of tiptoed around why they weren't asking him. They just said basically like they're in two different spaces. Their bass player kind of went at first and condemned it and just kind of circled back around and said like, I understand why they chose not to ask me to come back kind of thing.
Right.
But so we also might see something from Nevermore. They're going to tour this year or do some festival shows or something. They have a list of all their albums that have come out, and then there's an empty spot saying 2025.
Right.
So Nevermore apparently is coming back. I don't know how much I'm accepting of that idea. I'll save my judgments for when it actually happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when it actually comes out.
Right. All right, buddy. So, what are you excited for 2025? Are you going to be an even more horrible person than you were last year?
Absolutely. Actually, I'll shamelessly plug myself. Josh knows this. I think you should plug yourself a little bit too. I'm actually finally not putting out, but I'm currently working on the album in the studio.
You're finally putting out.
I am. Got 4 songs. All the instrumentals are done for the songs. We're just now doing pretty much mixes, and I need to record vocals for them. And then we'll sit down and do final mixes for all 4 songs. Those will become the singles for the album. And as I'm slowly releasing the 4 singles, I will also be going back into the studio and recording the rest of the album song by song until it's ready. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm hoping to have it come out by fall of 2025. So there's another artist you can look for. The Bullet Hole Concept. I should be coming out with a new album here.
2025.
My debut album should be coming out here, hopefully in the next 10 months is what I'm looking at.
I think you should sound more excited about that.
Dude, you have no idea how excited I am. I've literally been, like, every day at work, I'll spend...
You can't see this, but his facial expression has not changed this entire time.
No, I have Tony Hawk face. My face doesn't change much. I literally have been taking certain amounts of time during the day, even at the gym, and listening to the rough mixes over and over again because I'm so excited for them, they'll actually get me pumped up in the gym. Not that they're, like, super heavy or anything crazy like that, but just listening to them gives me an energy boost.
You're excited. You should be.
I am. And so for people that don't know, just the quick history, these songs have been done and recorded and written in demo form, crappy demo form in my computers. There's 13 songs, and we're going to do a cover. I'm not going to tell you what cover because you're going to get mad at me. For, like, it's a pop song that we're covering for fun. It's
Madonna's Like a Virgin, isn't it?
It's not Madonna. God, I would never cover Madonna. But
that means yes.
The songs have been written anywhere between 8 and 5 years now. Like, we're talking a long time that I've sat on this and haven't had the money or anything or the ability to get into the studio. So now that I'm finally in the studio, I am absolutely losing my fucking mind, and being able to hear these songs with full recorded drums and the rough mixes finally has got me so pumped up, and the songs are sounding better than I ever thought they would. And I know I'm sounding like a very stereotypical musician that's listening to their album be made, but that's how it feels. Like, you're like, there's the stuff that this like I needed help with from a producer and someone that can record for me while I'm playing everything. Like, oh my gosh, it's happening, and it's sounding better than I ever thought it would, because I wasn't able to hear it in this context for the past 8 years. Like, we're talking 8 years I've waited for these songs to be finally finalized with a drummer and a full studio production, and it's finally fucking happening. So yeah, I'm fucking excited. So yeah, it'll be on the Dissonant Harmonics page when we start dropping tracks and everything. But yeah, it's going to be 4 singles. I'm going to do what I am not going to be a hypocrite, and I am going to fucking sit there and be like, look, we're going to release 4 singles, wait for the album to come out. We'll probably put out a single a month or every month and a half leading up to the album. And then the album's going to drop, and you're going to have 12 or 13 tracks to listen to. So 8 or 9 new tracks to check out after the singles are released.
Hell yeah. Are
So
you
that's
gonna do
kind
physical?
of that's my big thing. What was that? Sorry.
Are you gonna do physical release?
Yes. I love physical releases. I still have like 50 copies of the first EP I ever put together, and at that point, the main reason is because I'm too ashamed to put them out to sell them because they suck. But I will print out, like, I'll start with just 50 copies of the CD. And if people want to get physical copies, most of the people that I know that want physical copies are like friends and family that want me to sign them really quick. So they have like the first copies I've ever released of an album, which I thank them for. But yeah, we're gonna put out physical copies so that people can get their hands on it. I love having people be able to see the liner notes and who wrote what and all that stuff. Even though everything was written by me, it is nice to kind of see the liner notes and have an artwork and a physical representation in your hand of everything. So.
Right. Well, hell yeah. I'm going to buy a copy for $10.
10? You get the friends and family discount.
So 15.
Yes.
I pay more now. I fund your career.
That's right. What are you looking forward to in 2025?
I'm looking forward to not dying.
That's a good goal. Easy goal to maintain.
It's a very... Oh, well, you never know. I mean,
Step
the Memphis
one,
drivers are fucking
Step
nuts.
1, make a goal. Step 2, make that goal manageable and obtainable.
Step 1, steal underwear. Step 2, Step 3, profit.
Mm-hmm.
No, so Frazier knows this. If you're on my social media at all, you've seen it, but I've been working with a local band name Encircled Throne. I know the guitar player. He might be somebody that we might bring on the show at some point. I'm kind of trying to see if I can get him on here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just to do an interview. But he's an extended family member that lives out in Mississippi. So when we first moved out here, we kind of started talking a little bit. And once he found out I was a bass player, you're kind of like toyed with the idea is like, hey, like, are you working with anybody right now? Like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm not working with anybody. I was thinking about trying to like form my own band out here. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go. He's like, well, our bass player left. He isn't able to do anything with us anymore. So I was offered a position and was told to learn 6 songs and learned for the most part 6 songs. And I played my first show with them in Memphis at Growlers this last Friday. So January 3rd. Mm-hmm. If you go to my social media platforms, you can see the videos that were recorded by my wife, and the venue also recorded some snippets and put them out too. You can find the album on Spotify, and I'm not on that album, but I have played the songs from that album live. And first time on stage, and I know I fucked up, but nobody else does.
Yeah.
So we're kind of talking about the idea of forming a side band and kind of going with a like more of a stoner doom metal sound.
Right.
It's in the very rough stages. We've kind of been looking at possibility. I know I really want to do one and do all concept albums just because
you love
I
concept
think and
albums.
write constantly. Huh?
Because you love concept albums. You always have.
Oh man, concept albums are the best, especially ones I don't have to explain.
Right.
But we've been mulling the idea around. I'm not sure if/when that's going to happen. I'm really hoping I can get it going this year. I mean, working with this band, it might just be playing the shows. It might be recording with them. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I got my first show out of the way, and I didn't pass out on stage, but I also look very rigid because my cord is only 3 feet long and my edible kicked in halfway through.
Oops.
So definitely like stood there for a while, like, all right, look at my fretboard, look at it. Okay, I'm here. All right, open note ping for the breakdown. I can look at the crowd. I can't see anybody. What's happening? Oh no.
Right.
But I have videos. They're posted. It was a fun time.
Good.
Got to see the next band on stage. I mean, kind of talked with a couple of the other local bands in the area, and not exactly what I expected for Memphis for a metal community, but the guys that I've talked to they're fucking awesome people. Growlers as a venue is fucking great. I'm looking forward to hopefully playing there again.
Yeah. All right, with that is our look back into 2024 and our look forward into 2025. Once again, I have been Frazier.
I will probably always be Josh.
And we will catch you next time, and you'll be listening to us next year anyway, so we will see you through the rest of the year.
Have fun, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.